السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So as I was saying, one of the most important behaviors that we as Muslims can thrive to adopt is the ability to respond and not react. So what's the difference between responding and reacting? Responding, let's start with reacting actually, because we all do that. Reacting is when something happens, when a trigger happens, when someone tells you a word, when something, anything. You feel that energy within you, and the first thing that comes to your mind that you want to do, you do. That's a reaction. A response is different. A response is when something happens and you're triggered, you pause, you wait. You see what you want to do. And then you actually start engineering a response to achieve that which you want to achieve. And subhanAllah, when we look at us as Muslims, we react. Even though the Prophet ﷺ, if you look through his seerah, he was the master of response, not reaction. And this comes to one very critical, I would say, ingredient. And we all know about it. Sabr. The main difference between responding and reacting is that moment of pause. That ability, that strength that you can control yourself and say, wait. And I'll relate it to something that you may all know. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when a woman was very sad and crying about the loss of her child. And the Prophet ﷺ came up to her from behind, right, to condole her. And she didn't know who he was in that moment. And she basically said, in what would be translated today as, get away from me. You don't know what I'm going through. And so the Prophet ﷺ, again, didn't react. Didn't say, don't you know who I am? Right? He walked away. So the Sahaba went to her and they said, do you know who you just told to go away? That's the Prophet ﷺ. So she went quickly to him and said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm so sorry. And he said, and this is the thing I want you to get from this. إِنَّمَا الصَّبْرُ عِنْدَ الصَّدْمَةِ الْأُولَى. That sabr, this whole concept of sabr that we talk about, is at that first moment of trigger. It's at that first moment. And that's the difference, subhanAllah, between responding and reacting. Can you hold yourself at that moment? So 3 steps to move from being reactive to responsive. 1 is pause. The ability to have that moment of sabr. And they say count to 3. They say, if you're standing up, sit down. All the tools and techniques to get us to just pause. And by the way, we all do this, including myself. One of the kids runs around, breaks something, we react. It's normal. Our default is actually around reaction. But the growth that we have to do is to respond. So step 1 is pause. Step 2, very important. What do you want? Think of it like a game of chess. You're about to make a move. What do you expect is going to happen on the other side? It's the intention. What outcome do you want? So that requires you to think. And many times when we're triggered, we don't think. We just do. And step 3 is to engineer a response that will achieve your outcome. It's an engineering. Okay, so I want the kid to learn not to break the glass again. Or not to run around in the house again. what do I do? Or not do. See, here's the other thing about response. A valid response is to do nothing. One of the most important parenting lessons ever is let it go. The kids are looking at me and smiling. Like, not always, but there's a lot of times where you pick your battles. You just let it go. If you react, you always do something. But if you respond, a response could be to do nothing and to actually wait. And I reflect on this even as we think about the current events we're going through. We're a ummah, unfortunately, right now, that is more reactive than responsive. We see what happens to our brothers in Palestine, and we react. I think about now we're starting to think about what do we actually want. It's a long-term game. The difference between response and react is also short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. We want to be long-term thinkers, because that's where the impact, subhanAllah, is. And when you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'll wrap up because this is a big topic, long-term thinker. Sabr. Wait. There were ummahs before you that used to be put on a saw and split into half. Wait. It's going to come. Are we going to do nothing? No. We're going to respond. We're not going to react. So that's my khatara for today. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.